Hello again, teachers. This is John over in Educational Technology, and this tutorial we're going to continue talking about Jamboard. And I think the idea here is just to get a little more familiar with the tools and kind of answer some questions that have been coming in as we go. One thing I didn't mention in the first tutorial was some of you have noticed over here it says open on a Jamboard. What exactly does that mean? Well, technically, Jamboard was designed as software that Google uses to work on physical Jamboards. So picture like an interactive smart board, an interactive whiteboard or a smart board that you have in your classroom or you guys have seen in other classrooms. Everything you can do on that, that's what a Jamboard is at Google. So the software you're using, kind of puts it into that Google atmosphere where everybody can work in the same environment, they can share, they can collaborate, and then everything works in conjunction with this hardware device. So we don't have Jamboards, so you could just ignore what when it says open on a Jamboard. So just a little side note for you. So anyhow, in this tutorial, we're going to go over some of these tools over here on the left and just get a general idea of what they are and what they do. I'm going to start down here at the bottom, actually, because hopefully this little T in a box looks pretty familiar to everybody. That's a text box. So when you add a text box into your Jamboard, you're not going to actually click and drag a text box. You just click one time and you've got a text box. So I'm going to put in some sample text here. Here's my sample text. Now, a couple things I want you guys to notice. Notice it already started wrapping my text because it was a default size of the text box. So if you don't want it to do that, so for example, say I want this to be a one-liner like a title, you can use you can use a side to just kind of drag that out until you get about the size that you want. Now, you do not have a ton of controls over the text in Jamboard. So if you guys notice up here in the toolbar, we've just got three different things to do. One is justification. Do I want it aligned left? Do I want it aligned right, or do I want it aligned center? The next one is your text color, and again, you don't have a massive palette here. It's supposed to be simplicity for efficiency's sake. So if I want my title to be blue, I would click on blue, and now my title's blue. And then you have basic like web style sizes. So if it's going to be huge, you guys are going to go up for title or display. And then you can just click it and drag it where you want, all the way down to like normal text or a caption. So again, there's no like font size and there's no huge palette, but you do have some controls over your text there. Okay, so let's jump all the way back up to the top again over here. And the top one is these are essentially your drawing tools. Your drawing tools will typically work better on a touch device, but if you're really good on your trackpad or your kids are, again, they're available to you and they do work great. So if I click on that one time, click on that little triangle, and you guys will notice you actually have 4 different tools in here. And if I just hold my mouse over it, it'll tell me exactly what they are. So this first one is a pen, next one's a marker, next one's a highlighter, and next one's a brush. There is a difference to these more than just the size to what they put out. You don't have control over the size besides you do with the tool. So I'm going to choose red just so that we get an idea of what each of these look like. So if I choose the pen and I do red, it's going to look like this. Basic line, just like that, like any pen. Think of it like a ballpoint pen. The next one over is a marker, and if you guys can picture like a Crayola marker, it's going to be a little thicker. And in my experience, I've seen more teachers use the marker than the pen just because of visibility and the interface for students. But again, totally up to you. The next one over is a highlighter, and the highlighter is going to be larger, but as you would suspect, a highlighter is meant to highlight over text. So if you were to put an image in the background that will cover and you want students to highlight text, they can use a highlighter and it'll still be semi-transparent, as you guys can see here. Now, if you keep going over the same thing, it's not transparent, so just be careful on that, that the highlighter is meant to just kind of do, your one-liner highlights like so. By the way, since I just did that, I do want to point out that you guys have an undo and redo up here at the top. So I just made one extra highlight. I don't want it. I'm just going to back up one step, maybe even 2 steps to get rid of that my part. And that's your highlighter. And the last one in there is the brush tool. The brush tool is probably going to be your largest of the tools. It is the most transparent or opaque of your tools. Some teachers will use that as a highlighter because it's even lighter depending upon the color you use. But that would be your last one. And again, hopefully you guys noticed the color differences that we have there as well. So that is your drawing tools up there at the top. The next one down is your erase tool. Erase tool works exactly as you might suspect it you just click and you can start erasing. Notice that it's not an eraser for text because text works on its own. You would actually click in there like a text box to erase it. Now, if I wanted to get rid of all this, it's kind of a pain to sit there and rub it all out like this. So sometimes if you have a lot to erase or you're literally just starting over, it's probably easier just to use the clear frame button up here at the top. So if I click on that, it would clear the frame and I can start over. Going back down, you guys have noticed the select tool. Now the select tool is kind of like a default anytime I'm not doing something else. So notice when I moved stuff or when I undid, it automatically went to select. So select tool allows me to select like text boxes and move them to wherever you want. The next one down is a sticky note, and I'm going to show you guys some samples. The sticky notes are actually really cool. You don't have a ton of control over the way they look, but they are very, very cool. So for example, let's say I was teaching a very rudimentary subtraction problem. I could give students practice like this. I can say 6 minus 5 equals, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I now have a sticky note. I can move that sticky note anywhere I want. I can resize that sticky note. So if I've got 10 on a page or 20 or 30 or more on a page, I can just move it wherever I want. In this example, I might tell students, okay, I want you to double click it and then give me an answer. So they would go in and they would add their answer. Maybe they change it when they're done to a different color and they click on save and your text box is back. So that's your sticky notes. The next one down is add an image. And if you guys have ever added images in any other Google app, you're probably familiar with what this is. You can upload something on your device, you can put in a URL, you can take a picture if you're on a device that has a camera, you can do a search in Google, you can pull something from Google Drive, or you can use your Google Photos if that's something you use. So if I go to Google image search and I just type puppy, oh, isn't it cute? So I click on the puppy. I'm going to go ahead and insert that, and that's a simple way to get an image into your Jamboard. And again, you guys can use these tools on the sides like we did with our text box to resize it. You also have the option to rotate it with that corner that has the little arrows on it. So if I wanted this to be like half the screen, maybe I rotate it and maybe I resize it to the size I want so that we can draw on top of it. Two other tools real quick here before we wrap this one up. One of them is probably the least used, but one of the more useful is the laser pointer. The laser pointer is kind of like, you know, the old school if I wanted to point at something from far away, but this is especially distance learning. You can say, look at this, and you can, you know, click and hold to use your pointer, or we tell students, you know, you spell it like this, and then you can use your laser pointer. The advantage of using a laser pointer over something like a highlighter or marker is that it doesn't stay. It goes away. So I can circle some text just so they get the idea and then not worry about it staying on my Jamboard and move on. So again, back to efficiency. And the last thing over here is shapes. Now you guys notice you've got these pre-built shapes. Hopefully those are pretty obvious to everybody, you know, how to use them, but you can just click on your shape. You do have the color up here at the top of the border and the fill color. So I'm going to drag a box over here, and maybe that's something I'm going to use, but I want it to be filled in with like blue. So those are all pretty simple. Again, you do have control over the border color as well as the fill color for those. So I apologize that this was a longer tutorial, but I did want to kind of cover all those tools for everybody. You're going to do another one very similar to that, but on the iPad, so you guys get an idea of how those tools are a little bit different and how they work with drawing. But hope that helps everybody. Remember, you can't be an analog teacher in a digital world, and we will see you next time.